Okay, so we've stored some text in our variables, but we can also use it to store numbers. And in fact, that's going to be very useful if we want to do any calculations. So in this first example, so in example 6, we ask the user what's their name, and we ask them what's their age, and then we say hello plus the age plus year old plus name. Okay, so you can see in that where I've run it here, it asks what the name is, asks the age. The user typed in 25 and it says hello 25-year-old Chris. But in this case, it's not. This is a bit of a cheat. This isn't really a number. It's a bit of text again. So this input only takes in some text that the user's typed in. So in this case, it's just the characters 2 and 5, and it's not the number 25. We refer to that, by the way, as a string. A string, whenever you hear that in a computing context, it just means it's a string of characters, like in this case 2 and 5, or CHRIS. Okay, or it can have or special characters like an underscore. Okay, so in order to do some calculations, a string of text is fine if we don't want to do anything with it. But if you want, you can manipulate it. But if you want to do some actual calculations, what if you want to build a calculator or do some data analysis? We can't add strings together and we can't multiply them, even if they contain numerical values like that 25. So what we need is a data type that stores a number. And the data type for that is a thing called an integer. So if we want some, so there's the code. If we want some text as a number, what we have to do is first of all convert it, and then we can use it as an integer. So in this example, you'll see there's a function int. Okay, so here on the third line, which takes what the user's typed in as their age and converts it into an integer, into a whole number. So this int stands for integer. It converts it into a whole number. So that line so if you look at the variables, each line of this code, by the way, declares a new variable: name, age, numerical age, year of birth. So there's 5 variables going on there. The first one is text. It's a string. So age is a string. But then we convert that using this int function to an integer. So now numerical age is a number. Year is an integer as well, because we've just put that in as an integer, so 2020. And then we can do a calculation like this. Because they're both numbers, we can subtract one from the other. So year minus numerical age, and that tells us when, in this case, when the user was born. So let's just run that, check it works. So I ask the user what their name is. I ask them what their age is. Possibly they might be lying about that. And then it works out, because it knows that the current year is 2020, because I've typed that into the code. I've hard-coded it, if you remember that. It knows that if they're 25 years old, then they must have been born in 1995. Okay, so we can do some arithmetic once we've got those values those variables stored as integers and not just as strings. And finally, in order to print that out and print the answer out, you notice it print out you were born, hello 25-year-old Chris, you were born in 1995. The other thing we have to do is convert the integer, so the year of birth, back into a string. So we use this str function. So in the second line of code down there, it converts the year of birth back into a string. Okay, so age is still a string. It doesn't need to be converted, but year of birth is an integer, so it needs to be converted to be used in this Python string. Okay, there's a page on the W3 Schools about how you do this. And just as just a little aside here, by the way, I mentioned that here we're temporarily storing the age as an integer variable to do some work on it. And if you think about it, how do these programs work? So some variables may store the same value for the entire program for the entire time that the program runs. Some variables may store a value which is updated every time, and some variables may be just used temporarily. If you think about a cash point machine, the name of the bank might be stored in a variable, but it's never going to change, right? So you might write a program that could be used by lots of banks, but when this particular bank is using it, it's got a variable that's never going to change. The total amount of money left inside the machine is a variable that is going to change, because after everybody's taken some money out, that will have to be changed, and every time it gets topped up with money, it will have to change. And the money required by a customer is stored temporarily, so whilst the transaction is taking place, but forgotten once that transaction has happened and the customer's account has been updated. So if you make a transaction in a CashPoint machine, the money that I've asked for is stored temporarily while the transaction is taking place, and then forgotten about once it's updated the account. So I just wanted to say that, just to make you aware that these variables can be things that change all the time, or change just very occasionally, or sometimes never change. Okay, that shows you how we can use integers. I'm going to stop this video here, and then in the next video we'll talk about some data types.